You may not realize it yet, but she already remembers men, not for what they say, not for the hollow words they scatter like coins, but for what they make her feel in the spaces she cannot name. There is one subtle shift, one imperceptible act that burns into her mind long after you leave, and most men are blind to it. They chatter, they chase, they perform, yet she forgets them by the next morning. You, however, can leave an imprint so profound, so quietly commanding, that it echoes in her thoughts like a shadow she cannot step out of, like an unfinished story she can never stop replaying. It begins not with what you offer her, but with what you choose to withhold. Presence without demand, attention without desperation, and silence that speaks louder than any confession. The average man mistakes volume for power, gestures for meaning, attention for intimacy. You will learn that power is never loud. Power is the stillness in the room when others scramble for recognition, the patience that watches without need, the confidence that does not hurry. It is in that silence that her mind begins to imprint upon you. The moments when you are fully present yet do not perform, fully attentive yet do not bend, those are the moments that linger. They resonate long after conversation ends, long after she has walked away, long after time itself has tried to erase the memory. Watch closely how she moves when you enter a space. The subtle tilt of her head, the brief catch of breath, the micro-curvature of a smile she doesn't even realize she is giving you. These are not trivialities. They are the unspoken codes of instinct, the primal whispers that dictate curiosity, attention, and evaluation. She does not consciously think about these moments, yet her subconscious records them in rich, intricate detail, layering emotion, expectation, and fascination into a mental imprint that will not fade. You are not performing for her awareness. You are cultivating the internal gravity that compels her mind to follow your presence, even when your body is elsewhere. Most men fail because they react. They seek approval, validation, a fleeting acknowledgement of worth. They surrender to desire without discipline. They speak without presence. They move without purpose. You, in contrast, understand the law of absence and the weight of subtlety. When you master your inner domain, when your emotions are disciplined, when your gaze is unwavering, your actions, no matter how small, become indelible markers in her mind. Every interaction is a seed. Every glance is a vector. Every pause, every measured step, every deliberate word carries a resonance that ordinary men will never achieve. Consider the space between words. Consider the power in leaving the question unanswered, the allure of a story half told, the magnetism of restraint. Her mind will fill the voids with fascination, curiosity, and projection. The ordinary man tries to fill space with noise. The extraordinary man leaves voids, and it is in those voids that she traces the contour of your presence. She does not know why she remembers you. She only knows that she does. This is not manipulation, it is comprehension. It is mastery of self, mastery of perception, mastery of the subtle currents that drive her attention without force. And yet, the imprint is not created merely by silence or presence alone. It is forged in contrast. The world is full of men who beg for notice, who crave approval, who abandon themselves for validation. You, however, operate differently. Your priorities, your energy, your movements are deliberate. You do not bend to her whims. You bend only to your principles. You demonstrate, through consistency and composure, that your value is intrinsic, unshaken by desire or fear. She notices this, not because you announce it, but because her instincts recognize power in its purest, most undiluted form. Observe her reactions with care. The moments she glances at you with fleeting intensity, the times her attention shifts unexpectedly back to you in a conversation you are no longer part of. These are the echoes of your imprint forming. Her brain is encoding patterns, your stillness, your restraint, your quiet dominance. And as the imprint strengthens, her curiosity intensifies, her subconscious interest deepens, and the ordinary narrative of attraction is inverted. You do not chase, You do not perform. You allow the gravity of your presence to work invisibly, inexorably, like the pull of a moon over the tides. To leave a lasting psychological mark, you must understand that attraction is not a transaction. It is an effect, a consequence of perception, not intention. Every interaction must carry weight. Every word must resonate with presence. Every absence must speak with subtle insistence. This is the distinction between men who are forgotten and men who are etched into memory. You do not seek to impress. You seek to exist fully in your mastery, and in doing so, her mind cannot help but register, catalog, and replay your essence long after the encounter ends. Notice also that your emotional equilibrium is itself a weapon. She watches not just your actions, but your reactions, and in those reactions, or the lack thereof, she senses stability, confidence, and control. Ordinary men fluctuate like waves, reacting to her moods, shifting with the tides of desire. You remain the anchor. Your calm presence teaches her instinctively that you are not to be swayed, that you are a force she can notice but never fully understand, a magnetic certainty in a sea of uncertainty. This is how imprints are formed. Not through grand gestures, not through artifice, not through desperate attempts at charm, but through unshakable, deliberate presence, a presence that registers in memory as both profound and mysterious. Every subtle act compounds over time. Every glance, every carefully measured pause, every slight withdrawal of attention adds layers to the impression you leave. She may not consciously articulate it. She may never say a word. Yet in her subconscious, the architecture of your presence grows, forming a memory that is not easily erased, a psychological mark that defines her perception of you long after the moment has passed. You are not shaping her will, you are shaping her perception, allowing her own instincts to respond, to recognize, and to remember. And so it begins, the quiet, deliberate construction of influence that is invisible yet undeniable, subtle yet unforgettable. You do not speak to be remembered. You act to be perceived in a way that transcends ordinary experience. You exist in a balance of presence and absence, action and restraint, gravity and silence. In this balance, she begins to feel your impact before she understands why. The ordinary man leaves only noise. You leave a mark, a silent, powerful echo that lingers, that grows, and that defines how she will recall you in the days, weeks, and months to come. You might think that leaving an imprint is about charm or conversation, but the truth is far more profound. The mark you leave is the consequence of how she interprets your value, not what you perform for her conscious mind. Every glance, every deliberate movement, every controlled word becomes a cipher through which she deciphers your essence. She is drawn not to what you do, but to what your presence implies: self-possession, unshakable confidence, and mastery over your own impulses. Ordinary men flood her with signals. You craft them. You allow the unspoken currents of attraction to carry her attention, rather than forcing it with words or gestures. Her mind is a landscape of impressions, and you are the sculptor of subtlety. Watch the small things, how she tilts her head when curious, how her posture shifts in anticipation, how her eyes flicker toward you when you are silent. Each micro-reaction is a thread, weaving a pattern in her subconscious. She does not know that you are leaving a lasting imprint. She only feels it, like the faint echo of a bell whose source cannot be located. You understand that memory is emotional, not rational, and your task is not to impress her intellect, but to influence her instinct. Every interaction is layered with signals, some overt, many hidden. Do not mistake loudness for impact. Do not mistake immediate attention for attraction. The men she forgets are those who demand recognition, who overexpose themselves, who seek reward before they have built substance. You are the inverse, measured, composed, and patient. You communicate value through contrast, not assertion. The subtle distancing of attention, the deliberate control of availability, the unspoken priority of self over desire, these are the forces that shape her perception at the deepest level. Consider the rhythm of your presence. When you speak, do so with deliberate cadence, each word weighted, each sentence carrying intention. Silence between words is a canvas upon which her mind projects your significance. When you move, let every step be measured, every gesture intentional. She registers these details with uncanny precision, even if she cannot name them. Her subconscious mind catalogs these subtleties and assigns to them significance, far greater than any performance could achieve. You are creating a psychological map, one that orients her attention to you without explicit effort, one that positions your presence as the benchmark against which all others are unconsciously measured. Understand that her attention is an instinctual commodity, not a transaction. You do not buy it with flattery, gifts, or forced charm. You earn it by demonstrating mastery of self and clarity of purpose. This is the principle that most men never grasp. Attraction is not given, it is recognized. And recognition arises from observation of pattern, consistency, and dominance over one's own impulses. Every moment you remain composed in the face of uncertainty, every time you resist reacting to emotional turbulence, you silently teach your brain that you are not ordinary. This is the subtle psychological imprint that echoes long after you are gone. She will respond unconsciously, often in ways she does not understand. A lingering glance, a fleeting smile, a subconscious mimicry of posture. These are her mind's attempts to decode and internalize your presence. Ordinary men mistake these reactions for superficial approval. You understand them as evidence that the imprint is forming. Your task is to amplify it through self-mastery, not manipulation. You create conditions for her mind to do the work itself, guided by instinct, curiosity, and admiration. Now, consider contrast once again. In her world, she encounters men who overreact, who chase validation, who are inconsistent and erratic. You, by contrast, operate on a plane of disciplined equilibrium. Your value is not granted by circumstance or attention. It exists independently. She senses this, even when words are absent. This disparity is what creates the magnetic tension, the psychological weight that causes her to remember you, to replay interactions, to linger mentally on the subtle cues you leave behind. You are not forcing attraction. You are creating a context in which her mind cannot help but recognize it. Every interaction can be elevated to this level, but only if you maintain emotional clarity. She watches your energy as much as your actions. She feels the difference between composure and neediness, between calm authority and reactive desperation. Her instincts respond to this gradient, cataloging subtle patterns in a neural archive far more powerful than conscious thought. The men who fail are those who expose their uncertainty. The men who succeed are those whose internal control radiates outward. Presence becomes a silent declaration. You are worthy of attention, not by effort, but by nature. This imprint is cumulative. Each meeting, each word, each silence builds upon the last, layering memory upon memory, until her mind carries a psychological signature of you. She begins to associate your presence with curiosity, intrigue, and subtle dominance. Even in absence, the neural pathways you have triggered continue to fire. She cannot articulate why she thinks of you, why your name arises unbidden, why your presence feels significant. And this is the apex of your strategy, the formation of a long-lasting, self-reinforcing imprint that cannot be hurried, forced, or replicated by ordinary men. Finally, understand that timing is as important as action. Impulsivity diminishes impact. Patience enhances it. Allow her mind the space to integrate what it perceives. Your measured engagement, combined with self-possession, forms a psychological resonance that continues to operate after you leave. Ordinary men flood the mind with noise. You craft echoes that linger, deliberate, and inescapable. In every interaction, you are planting seeds of perception, cultivating fascination, and orchestrating the conditions for her mind to internalize your presence as something exceptional, something unforgettable, something inherently magnetic. There comes a moment when the imprint you leave begins to work in silence, shaping her perception even when you are nowhere near her. It happens subtly. She finds herself remembering the calmness in your eyes, the grounded weight of your voice, the steadiness in your posture when others were driven by impulse. She replays your silences, your measured reactions, your refusal to be pulled into emotional turbulence. She senses something in you that she cannot categorize, and that inability creates a cognitive tension her mind tries to resolve. And in doing so, she circles back to you again and again. This is when your presence becomes a reference point. Every man she encounters is unconsciously measured against the memory you've left behind. Their noise exposes your quiet strength. Their neediness highlights your discipline. Their emotional volatility reveals your control. Without a word, you've shifted the gravity of her expectations. You've become the invisible standard. And this is where the psychological imprint deepens from curiosity into significance. Her instincts begin to associate you with certainty, depth, and an enigmatic force she cannot decipher. Now understand this. The deepest imprint is formed not through closeness, but through intermittent depth. Moments where your presence hits her with full force, followed by stretches where she must sit alone with the weight of what you made her feel. Space becomes a tool, not distance, but rhythm. Presence, then absence. Intensity, then quiet. A glimpse of your inner world, then a retreat into your purpose. This rhythm activates a part of her psyche that thrives on emotional contrast. She feels grounded in your presence and curious in your absence. The duality is what etches you into memory. And as her mind contends with this rhythm, she begins to wonder, who exactly are you? Not in a superficial sense, but on a fundamental, existential level. She tries to decode your motivations, your principles, your internal architecture. She senses discipline, but not rigidity. She senses confidence, but not arrogance. She senses interest, but never dependence. You become a paradox, familiar yet impossible to fully grasp. This paradox is the foundation of long-term psychological resonance. Her instincts chase clarity, and in that chase, your imprint deepens. This is the turning point, the power reversal. You no longer move through her frame of perception. She moves through yours. She responds to your rhythm, not the other way around. She feels the impact of your presence more intensely than you feel hers. Your emotional steadiness becomes the axis around which her reactions orbit. And without any force, without any manipulation, her attention begins to follow you with increasing consistency. Her curiosity becomes investment. Her thoughts drift without permission. Her emotions seek alignment with yours. You did not demand this. You did not chase this. You became this. And becoming always outperforms performing. But understand, to maintain this imprint, you must continue to embody the principles that created it. You must remain firmly rooted in your purpose. Your life must extend beyond her, not collapse around her. A man who abandons himself for a woman loses the very essence that drew her in. The imprint dissolves when he trades self-mastery for attachment. Your discipline is the architecture. Your purpose is the foundation. Without them, your presence loses its gravity. This is where many men fall. They mistake emotional influence for emotional dependence. They forget that a psychological imprint is not a cage. It is a reflection of how deeply your identity resonates with her instinct. You are not meant to possess her mind through force. You are meant to anchor yourself in such profound stability that her mind naturally gravitates toward you. This is the distinction between manipulation and mastery. Manipulation seeks control. Mastery creates gravity. And gravity needs no explanation. It only needs consistency. Now look deeper. The mark you leave is not merely emotional. It is philosophical. Her interactions with you cause her to confront herself, her desires, her insecurities, her patterns. She sees in you a level of internal order she has not encountered often. It challenges her. It intrigues her. It unsettles her in the best possible way. You become a mirror reflecting not only who you are, but who she could be next to a man like you. If that mirror is clear, strong, calm, principled, it becomes unforgettable. There is a timeless truth here. Women remember men who change their internal landscape. Not through words, not through promises, but through presence that transforms. The man who shifts her emotional patterns, even slightly, becomes a permanent psychological reference. Attraction becomes respect, and respect becomes imprint. You do not chase, you do not persuade, you do not prove. You allow your depth to speak in a language her instincts understand, the language of unwavering male certainty. And as this transformation unfolds quietly within her, a final shift occurs. The narrative she once controlled now bends toward you. She begins to anticipate your reactions, to seek your approval through subtle cues, to adjust her energy to match yours. She wants to be understood by you, perceived by you, remembered by you. The imprint has inverted her internal hierarchy, positioning you not as a participant in her emotional world, but as the axis of it. This is the culmination of the psychological mark you leave. You become the rare man she cannot forget, not because you tried to be unforgettable, but because you embodied a presence her subconscious refuses to release. And now you understand the truth you were searching for since the first moment you asked how to leave a deep, psychological imprint on her mind. It is not about tactics. It is not about lines. It is not about strategy. It is about who you are when you stop trying to impress and start living in disciplined alignment with your highest identity. The imprint is not created in her mind. It is created in yours. She only mirrors what you have mastered. And as your presence lingers, the echo returns to where it all began. You leave a mark not by forcing memory, but by becoming a man whose essence cannot be erased.